Hey guys, I'm Dov, and today I'm back with more Total War Warhammer 2 online action. We're back with BRETONNIA, going to be taking on the foul Norskins, so let's go ahead and take a look at the army composition. I had a thought after my recent game with Turin, playing this matchup as BRETONNIA, that, there's really no reason to ever take a frontline engagement with Norsca, or for a number of other factions for that matter. And with how the Bretonnian cavalry is right now, you can actually take somewhat viable all-cavalry builds. So, I've done that here. We'll see how well this actually works, but the idea here is we've got 4 mounted yeoman archers. These guys are going to come forward and do some skirmishing, try and whittle away at the Marauder infantry as much as possible before the main engagement gets underway. One of them is going to be the Regiment of Renown. Wardens of Montfort with their poison missiles will be able to get some extra utility there. In terms of the rest of the army, of course, we've got the Prophetess, Lore of Life up in the air. You're relatively safe to go up in the air here. I've occasionally seen people bring the Frostworm in this matchup, although it's not a super common pick, so you're relatively safe up in the air. We've also got 3 Knights of the Realm. One of them is the Regiment of Renown Knights of the Lion-Hearted. Also hidden in the woods here are the Regiment of Renown Defenders of the Fleur-de-Lis, a really excellent cheap shock cavalry. They have pretty decent stats with a 54 charge bonus, especially with that Frenzy, and of course immune to psychology while that Frenzy's active. We've also got the Regiment of Renown questing knights here, the Companions of Cornell, pretty much an auto pick in almost any matchup just due to the fact that they have amazing combat stats and weapon strength. Just look at in the 40s for melee attack, weapon strength, charge bonus, 80 armor with Blessing of the Lady. Very, very strong unit. We've also got 2 Grail Knights in a forward position, one of them hidden in the woods here, and another over on the far side, and that's pretty much it for my build. Let's go ahead and take a look at the Norskins. They've got Throg here, front and center, leading the way, a Famir Balefine Lore of Shadows, both very good picks. Got 2 Famir with great weapons, also very good picks, some Marauder Horsemen with throwing axes. He's got some Marauder Spearmen out on the flanks, 2 Marauders, and 3 Berserkers up through the center. So a relatively straightforward Norscan build. He's also got a unit of Ice Wolves here hidden in the woods. So yeah, this is a pretty typical, prototypical Norscan versus Bretonnia build. So let's see how we do. You can see the mounted yeoman archer is going to pull up into range and immediately start unloading some shots. I love how the Marauder Berserkers hold their axe out like that's actually going to block something, but oh man, that's pretty funny. But yeah, the skirmish phase is definitely going to go obviously in my favor here. Marauder Berserkers, one of their biggest weaknesses is the skirmish fire, and especially mobile skirmishers. Like, my opponent has these Norscan Ice Wolves that could maybe catch my mounted yeoman archers, but beyond that, there's not really a lot that he can do to counterplay this. He's going to try and bring his own Marauder Horsemen forward, but the Horsemen, they'll probably beat the mounted yeoman archers in melee, but it remains to be seen whether my opponent tries to actually come into melee or is just going to skirmish. I mean, obviously, Marauder Horsemen do have a missile block chance, but they also have much shorter range, so I can skirmish away and continue to fire while he gets just near the edge of his range where they can't actually shoot, so that skirmish engagement will definitely go in my favor. I didn't necessarily want to take the frontline engagement quite yet, so I'm going to pull my cavalry force up on top of this hill and just kind of bide my time, try and use up all the ammunition of these yeoman archers before we get the melee engagement underway proper. Just because, yeah, I obviously, like I said in the beginning, no reason to take a frontal engagement, just a head-on engagement with Norsca. You're going to lose every time as Bretonnia, I think, especially because Famir are just so good against Grail tier units that you need to get rid of the infantry support before you deal with the Famir. You can see I tried to get a cheeky little charge here with these Grail Knights. Unfortunately, the Norscan Ice Wolves I didn't see there actually do catch me. I'm going to pop a regrowth on them to try and keep them in the fight, and then we're going to use the Defenders of the Fleur-de-Lis to come in and try and clean up these Norscan Ice Wolves. This is actually going to be an ideal usage for them, because the Norscan Ice Wolves are a very light unit. They have low melee defense and low armor. Actually, they have pretty decent melee defense. If I can actually get their unit card here, 19, not too bad for a Hound, but still, they'll get put down pretty hard by the Defenders of the Fleur-de-Lis once they get their charge off. And meanwhile, we're just occupying these units in the main line here. You can see routed off some Marauder Horsemen. My opponent at this point is content to sit back and take this fire. Obviously, he can try and push forward if he wants to, but because I'm all cavalry, I'll just be able to pull away here. Defenders of of the Fleur-de-Lis and Grail Knights have finished off the Ice Wolves now, turning their attention to these Marauder Spearmen. And, you know, Marauder Spearmen do have an anti-large bonus. They're a spear unit, technically, but they have very low armor, and their melee defense isn't great either. Actually, 41, not too bad. But still, they're going to get put down pretty hard here by just the overwhelming amounts of cavalry. And that's kind of the idea here, is we're going to try and draw out and pull away high-value targets and try and alpha strike them with just overwhelming amounts of cavalry, because Famir will do well against a single Ground Knight, but a Ground Knight plus, you know, 2 to 3 Knights of the Realm all charging in at once is going to put down these Famir in a big hurry. So that's kind of the idea here. A little bit more of a skirmish phase going underway. I know it's not the most exciting thing to watch, but we're cleaning up some Marauders in the periphery, trying to, if my opponent isolates any units, if he gets any units isolated here, then we're going to try to take them out. You can see these Famir moving forward to kind of position over on this flank, so I'm like, okay, it's probably about time we get the engagement underway. My opponent is dropping that Penumbral Pendulum, trying to drop some magic on these mounted yeoman archers. Did take out a couple of the unit models there, but not going to be the most efficient use of that spell against cavalry. But yeah, you can see we've done some really nice work with these mounted yeoman archers, some of them even getting some XP chevronage going on, so that's always nice to see. Yeoman archers are one of those units that situationally can be pretty good, although they're definitely not the best skirmish cav, certainly. But we finished off the Ice Wolves here, the rest of the cavalry making their way down the hill. We're going to get some chivalry going here in just a moment. Most of the mounted yeoman archers are starting to run out of ammo. We've pretty much dealt with the Marauder Horsemen for the most part. And many of the Marauder units are quite damaged as well. But now we're going to come down with the Defenders of the Fleur-de-Lis, kind of have them be a bit of a bait. They took down this Marauder Spearman that was very low, and then the Famir are going to overcommit here and try and take them down. So we're going to come down with Grail Knights and several units of Knights of the Realm and catch them out here. You can see since they're isolated from the main force, this is the idea here. You want to draw out high-value units and take them down with just overwhelming amounts of cavalry. We're going to drop Regrowth on that Grail Knight once again to keep it nice and healthy, and then you can see we're pulling these guys back and going to come in with a second timing push with all these Knights of the Realm. I'm tying this up simultaneously with a charge from mounted yeoman archers. We're going on a bit of an alpha strike on this weakest berserker here, just trying to take it down with, again, overwhelming amounts of cavalry. This is going to occupy my opponent's attention here. While we get this massive downhill charge, you can see all these Knights of the Realm and Grail Knights and everything. A beautiful cinematic charge just running downhill. And oh man, I never noticed the crests on some of these guys, but yeah, they are going to beautifully destroy these Famir. Just overwhelming amounts of cavalry. Throg's going to come in, but you can see those Famir with Grapens already done for. And that's kind of the idea here, is you come in for the alpha strike. And I know some of you hate the fact that I use that term, but it is an actual concept. It's not just a term that we throw out there. So what is an alpha strike? Well, that's an alpha strike, where you come in with just overwhelming force and shut down a unit almost immediately. You know, with like 3 or 4 more units, especially heavy shock units like shock cavalry, big monsters and stuff. That's what an alpha strike is. So you guys can stop bothering me about using the term. It is an actual concept, so just keep that in mind. But yeah, at this point, a lot of the other knights are going to come in here and start to tie down the Marauder infantry. Again, a lot of the mounted yeomen being used for that effect as well. But now these Grail Knights come in, get a beautiful charge here into the side of these Marauder Berserkers. And the Berserkers are going to just wilt under that charge. Meanwhile, these very injured Famir are going to get a clean open charge from the Grail Knights, and they'll definitely get finished off here. The Balefian Lore of Shadows and this other unit of Famir with Grey Weapons is going to come in, so we'll pull those Grail Knights back. They're at their healing cap, so I can't really heal them anymore, but Throg overcommitted pretty seriously here as well, and he's currently surrounded by Knights of the Realm, which, although he will be able to do some damage to them, just this many cavalry, especially when they're poking him in the back with their anti-large bonus, and Throg doesn't have that much armor. He's definitely going to suffer here. We've got the Companions of Cornell also coming in with their AP. They'll be able to help put down the Famir. You can see each Famir is surrounded by like 5 or 6 elite Bretonnian cavalry, and it's just going to be a bad day in general. The Famir do not like the situation, although they are very good against the Bretonnian cavalry. They need to be properly supported, otherwise they'll just get swamped. You can see my yeomen have kind of kicked the can here a little bit, but They did their job in tying down my opponent's infantry force, and they also did quite a bit of damage initially as well, so that in and of itself was effective. Famir shattering all across the board, and the Prophetess, even herself coming down, going to be taking advantage of her 60 charge bonus there to put a couple hits on Throg. Of course, again, he only has 55 armor, so even her attacks will be able to do a good amount of damage, and with Throg broken, you can see the balance of power is tipped very decisively in my favor. So now we're going to pull the cavalry out and come in for one last glorious charge against the foul Norskins. So we'll soak up some cinematics as these berserkers get taken for a ride. The Icehorn Marauders as well. I think my opponent had the Icehorn Marauders at least. I don't see them here, but yeah. The Norscan forces are going to rout very, very quickly with that loss of leadership. At this point, it's just the Brutes of the Hound fighting here, so we'll soak up some last cinematics of some beautiful Bretonnian CAV charges. Oh, it looks like my opponent actually admitted defeat there, so well played to my opponent. I hope you guys enjoyed watching that battle. Again, just kind of the concept here is to not ever give a frontline engagement to Norsca, because peasant infantry will just die. They'll just get melted. Even foot squires will get melted by berserkers. So really the idea is you don't want to take that engagement at all, and just try and pull your opponent apart with the mounted yeoman archers. They can do really good damage to some high value units for your opponent. And then you use the cavalry to kind of just kind of circle around, almost like a wolf pack, where you kind of circle around and wait for weakened prey or something to get isolated, and then you just rush it. Again, the alpha strike, the concept of the alpha strike, I want to ingrain that in your mind so that when you guys hear that, you're not just hearing random words, but it's when you come in with overwhelming force, multiple units just coming in all at once, heavy shock damage, and you take out a unit very, very quickly, especially high value units like those two Famir. We were able to more or less alpha strike both of them down without too much issue. We did take some damage on one of the unit of Grail Knights, but the Prophetess, Lore of Life, allowing me to kind of make those mistakes and have that forgiveness with the healing there, obviously. So just in terms of the army breakdown, you can see all across the board here chevrons, especially for the Knights of the Realm, helping to deal with very expensive units, Throg and the Famir with great weapons, of course, and then getting a nice cinematic charge there at the end into the Marauder Infantry. Grail Knights also helped in that aspect as well. Companions of Cornell didn't end up getting that many kills, but they did definitely help take down those Famir, and they weren't really called upon too much to do a lot. My opponent didn't really have any Marauder champions or anything like that, but still, I like them quite a bit in this matchup. And the Mounted Yeoman Archers also, I think these guys all started with 1 XP Chevron, managed to pick up a second one through the course of the battle just by shooting at Berserkers and stuff, so I really like them in this matchup. But let me know your guys' thoughts about this build. What would you do in this particular matchup against Norsca? Do you think that this all-cav strategy maybe has merit in some other matchups, maybe like the Dark Elf matchup, for example, or maybe a handful of others? Let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments down below. Hope you guys enjoyed watching. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button, so every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.